for another edition of This Old Gibson. I'm Scott, and this is a 1960s Dove. It's not from the 60s, it's just that's what it's called, the 1960s Dove. It has a hole in it. Not only does it have a big hole in it, but it has some other deeds that have been done to it rather nefariously. Some of these deeds have been done dirt cheap. What in the hell happened here? Little extra piece of pickguard material? Cover up the missing lacquer maybe? Cover up a few scratches? This one has the old bridge be slanting this way kinda syndrome that happens a lot of times. First, I widen the hole. Oh shit, someone put a... There's a blue wall anchor buried in here. You see all the blue? Well, good thing I got it strapped into my String Tech workstation. I tell you, Mike McConville, he's a radical dude. So far I've done all this with those brass stepped bits. Now I'm going to change over to this Stumac end pin reamer. And I like to put a little mineral spirits on it. I don't know if that is scientifically proven to help, but I feel like it keeps it cool and sharp. Got to clean it out many times. At this point, I go in right beyond where the taper ends, which is the 1/2 inch mark. And then I change it to a regular drill bit. And I'm not going to use the 1/2 inch bit, I'm going to use the 31/64 bit. This is just below 1/2 inch. They tell you to drill 1/2 inch, but I've been told by Dave Collins to drill a little smaller. And if Dave says so, I'll just go ahead and figure on doing it myself. That's it. Nice. Okay, what I got here is a thin piece of veneer. This is the dovetail shim maple, basically. And I take some of that K&K putty and put it on my middle finger. Now I've got a fresh bottle of Gel Control Super Glue. Ultra Gel. I'm going to reach in there and stick it. I'm going to stick it. Right there. Okay, that was a success. Now, I'll fill this area with the Mohawk Epoxy Putty Pine. This is one I kind of don't like filming when I'm working with this stuff, because the next thing you know, I'm going to get this stuff stuck onto my video camera, which I don't want, because I got to basically use my fingers. And I control the video camera with my fingers. So let me knead this up. I'll jam it in that hole. Next, I take a razor blade with the simple green soapy water slathered onto it. That keeps the stuff from sticking to the blade. It keeps the epoxy putty from sticking. See? Didn't stick to the blade. Also, I'll take a little bit of the soapy water right on my finger and smooth that baby right over there. Nice. One more pass with the blade. So we'll take a little advice from Dave Collins, and we'll take a little method or strategy from Ian Davlin. A little spray shellac in a cup. A little cherry red on the edge. If cherry red is the ticket. Hell yeah, cherry red's the ticket. I got the cherry red ticket. Don't want to pull it up around the edges because it'll get darker around the edges. You want to make sure your brush is pretty much dry. I mean, I decided I better do some sanding because these big old ridges, that will telegraph through. I got 120 grit sandpaper. Okay, I sanded that to the point where when you rub your finger across it, you don't feel that ledge anymore. And then I wiped it with a little bit of denatured alcohol. That softens the lacquer slightly, just the outer edge of it a little bit. That way it doesn't flake off in the future, hopefully. This spot, I'm going to leave that one. I'm not going to sand the ledge off on this one. I'm going to drop the color right down in there and just fill over top. It's kind of the same thing I did with that spot right there. I just dropped that color in it. There's still like a huge valley, like a canyon that it's sitting in there. I'll drop the clear coat right over the top. And then there's the epoxy putty spot. Again, I'm taking this from the Ian Davlin playbook. 120 grit on Lexan. And I'll carefully sand this area much more carefully than I was on that big gash. Just to feather in the surroundings just a little bit, just maybe a 1/8 of an inch around the whole thing. Crazy looking. Some naphtha to clean. We'll drop in some cherry red. I would advise against just leaving a spot with the ledges like this. I ended up, because I'm applying this with shellac, I was able to have a redo. I just mopped it up with a little bit of a Q-tip on some denatured alcohol. This is the Glue Boost Fill and Finish Thin. I'll try to create a barrier coat with this fill and finish so it doesn't build up around the ledges as much. We'll do the same thing on that big gash. This color proved to be very unforgiving. A little bit of the accelerator. Yeah, I really think the best way to try and do a repair like this would be to sand the entire side and just airbrush it. So there's the plugged hole. We got it prepped and we got the area kind of masked off with these Viva paper towels. We're going to airbrush it. So here's the setup. This piece of foam, it kind of cradles my airbrush. I put it in the nut and saddle vise. And then I've got some glass containers. I decided to use what I just call a pinprick of pigment. Not a full drop or anything, just a pinprick. And a pinprick of Bordeaux, which is the bluish red. Not a full drop, just a pinprick. And I'll put it in the bottom of the container. And then I'll take some lacquer thinner and mix them up real good with the Q-tip. Then I'll add in about half and half. I'm going to go half lacquer thinner, half lacquer. And I know it's half and half because I use the little dropper bottles. Thinner, I'll go, this is really thick viscosity stuff. We'll do 4. And cherry red, we'll do like 10 drops. Let's do 12. I noticed the 12 drops of cherry red didn't give me a very rich color, so I went and put 8 more drops in. So 20 drops of cherry red. And we'll load up the airbrush. Right here I'm trying to decide where to scratch off that color. I think I want to kind of scratch it here. Maybe over here a little. So I'm just wiping on some poly And it's nowhere near as good as I wanted it to be, of course. It never is. It seems like, you always hope for it to be just, hit the ball out of the park, but sometimes you get a single or a double. You take what you can get, within the budget, and then we make it, so it's playable, functional. Maybe one day he'll get that big spot patched in, and they'll just sand this all back down to bare wood and refinish the whole thing. At least the whole side. That's what I'm thinking. Doing a little wet sanding today. Got a little soapy water. And I forgot to switch my sandpapers. I'm doing 2000 grit sandpaper with some soapy water. And then I do Trizact pad. It's kind of like using 3000 grit. And then we'll buff it with Jimmy Buffett. Gotta take it downstairs for that. Well, Mark Stutman taught me that the safest way to remove stuff or warm up tops is with a hair dryer. So that's what I did. And I got a fresh razor blade also. I always thought that was kind of the best way to start prying off a part, is with the razor blade, if you work it in there, which appears to work fine. Let's see what we got under here. Oh man, it's a pretty deep gouge. Wow. It's pretty bad. Oh, it's deep. Very deep. So I'm going to let the customer know that the only repair advice that I have right now is to just put a little bit of sealer over that bare wood. And then once that has cured, I'll try to get some of the tape residue off around the edges. And that's all I can help them with for the time being anyways. Okay, here, so I just got in from the buffer. I didn't take the camera down, but the schedule for finishing this wipe-on poly is that I wet sand it with 1500 and 2000 grit, and then the Trizact, which is like a 3000 grit on a foam, and then I take it and I work it on the guitar buffer in the garage, and then that's it. I mean, this is so figured and all, I didn't see any need to use any hand polishing, but yeah, it's workable. It's quick and easy, get it out of the shop in a week and back in the owner's hands. So we got it somewhat presentable. I got that little pickguard piece off of there. I didn't promise the moon or anything, just to get it so that there was no more buyer's remorse and you could pick it up off the wall and not have the jack in the wrong place anymore, stuff like that. But this guitar is going to watch this, there are some people that could do this job. This patchwork on curly maple. One of them, who I just was admiring their work on Instagram, is Nicole Alasinik in Vancouver, and she did this one that is curly maple. They had a blowout with the output jack, and she was able to route down enough of the surface in a shape of a football and patch in this piece, but she did have to sand that much of the side off. She did just a brilliant job coloring it in, and the result was just, you know, beautiful. You can see the little football shaped plug, but it's just a magnificent repair. There's a few other people that I've seen work with curly maple. There's a Tim Frick. They did a little thing on the Luth group here where he grafted an entire headstock onto an old Gibson. And there are people that can do this kind of work. They build guitars, they have spray booths, they spray nitro lacquer. They've did this kind of thing before, and it would cost a lot of money. I would say at least a couple $1,000, and you might have to send it off for a year or so. But it's possible. So I just wanted to, you know, offer a few hours of my labor, a few $100s, and it might be good enough. You know, he mentioned putting something over this, a little patch or something, sticking something on the you know, over top of it, and if he finds something that works for him, it might be good enough, and he'll just enjoy this guitar for the rest of his life, for all I know. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you later.